Hello and welcome to my channel. I have another question, and the question is, how long is a generation in the Bible? The Bible uses the term generation in some different ways. Normally the word generation refers to all the people living at the same time. The word in the Bible has the same definition that we are used to in modern usage when we speak of Generation X or the millennial generation. Normally a generation is about 30 years. One generation raises the next. However, in some biblical contexts, a generation can refer to a longer age or a group of people spanning a longer period of time. In Genesis chapter 2 verse 4, generations of the heavens and the earth seems to include all of human history, the era begun by creation of the universe. In Exodus chapter 1 verse 6, the generation who dies refers to everyone who had been alive during the time that Joseph and his brothers lived. In Numbers chapter 32 and verse 13, the generation is limited to Israelites, the group of them 20 years old and older at the time of their refusal to enter the promised land. That one generation was doomed to wander in the wilderness until they all died, except for Joshua and Caleb. When the plural word generations occurs in the Bible, as in Isaiah chapter 51 verse 9, in Acts chapter 14 verse 16, it refers to an indefinite period of time, many successive generations. The original languages of the Bible used at least 3 different words that are translated generation in English. The Hebrew dor can refer to a normal physical generation, as in Exodus chapter 1 verse 6, but it can also be used metaphorically to identify people of distinguishable type. For example, Psalm chapter 78 verse 8 says they should not be like their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation. A generation whose heart was not steadfast, whose spirit was not faithful to God. Here the word dor used twice to refer to a group of people for a long period of time who were characterized by rebellion and sin. The generation in Psalm chapter 78 verse 8 is not limited to a normal 30-year period, but stretches back through the history of Israel to include all who were stubborn against God. The other Hebrew word we translate as generation is toledot. This doesn't refer to a character of a group or an age, but to how that age was generated. So the generations of the heavens and earth in Genesis chapter 2 verse 4 refers to the time periods that started with creation and continued organically from that point. The generations of Adam in Genesis chapter 5 verse 1 means the civilization of people that began with him. The next generation is that of Noah, to include the flood and the civilization that came after. Shem's influence is marked as a generation, as he was the father of the Semites, and Terah's because he left Ur with his son Abram. Later, Ishmael and Isaac were the source of new generations. In each case, the men either experienced or caused a significant event that changed the course of their family line. They generated a culture-altering event. In the New Testament, the Greek genea is the source of generation, but it is similar to both Hebrew words. Literally, it means fathered, birthed, nativity, referring to a genetic line, but it can be used as both the time frame characterized by a specific cultural attitude and the people in that culture. In Matthew chapter 1 verse 17, the generations are marked off by significant events and people. Abraham, David, Babylonian captivity, like the Hebrew toledot. But when Jesus calls the Pharisees and scribes a wicked and perverse generation, he is referring to the culture that they lived in and encouraged. So when we read generation in the Bible, we have to consider the context. Usually a generation in the Bible is roughly 30 years long, or the people living during that time. The same as what we understand a generation to be in everyday talk. But there are times when generation is used poetically to refer to a class of people demarked by something other than age. Thank you for listening to this question. I'll see you next time.